Hunters, welcome back to another episode of the Flush 'em and Dust 'em podcast. This episode, we have special guest on, Eric Locker. He is originally from Iowa, but has moved to Alaska and hunts birds up in Alaska, comes to Iowa, chases after those Iowa roosters. So, Eric, we're happy to have you on this episode. We're definitely looking forward to it, but give the listeners some of your background.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a great opportunity. Back in 2016, got a call from somebody up in Alaska, and we were working, my wife and I, at a Bible camp in Iowa, up in northern Iowa on Clear Lake. And a chairman of a camp board up there was like, "Hey, would you have any interest in coming to Alaska and being a camp director up here? We have a opening on the Kenai Peninsula." And I was like, that would be absolutely awesome. So they paid our way up there in the month of December so we could check it out. And they offered me the job at the end of that week. And so we moved up the first week of February 2017.
Dang, that's crazy. That's a pretty
Yeah, talk about dropping in your lap.
Yeah, no kidding. That is very cool. So what's it like up in Alaska? Just like atmosphere, weather, bugs. I mean,
yeah, I've never been
pretty awesome place. It varies a lot just because the state is just entirely huge. So from top to bottom, it's about 1,000 miles north to south. I'm not even sure what it is east to west. It's at least that. And so where we're at, which is on the Kenai Peninsula, 2.5 hours south of Anchorage on the Sterling Highway, it's pretty mild when it comes to Alaska terms. So like the extremes would be December 21st, of course, the coldest, darkest time. We still get quite a bit of daylight there. So like sunrise is at 10:30 in the morning and sunsets around 3:45.
Whoa, that's crazy.
But it still does get light out, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And it really depends what the weather's like. Some days it'll be 20 below. Other days we'll get this weather system that comes in from Japan that we like to call the Pineapple Express, and it'll be above freezing, which oftentimes it's warmer than Iowa is. Wow. The winter overall is just a lot longer and a lot darker.
That's great.
But in the summer, it's the opposite. So
it's super light. So how many months is it? Do you only have those like 5-6 hours of daylight?
Basically, like November, December, January are the worst. And then
is it just like gray and dark and.
Yeah, it is. The sun's really low on the horizon. So like if you have trees to the south part of your property, you really don't see the sun.
Oh man.
Jeez.
And there are places in Alaska, like even up in the Anchorage area where there's a mountain there where people don't see the actual ball of sun for like 17 days.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That would be tough. Was it a hard change when you guys moved up there? I mean, or is it pretty much is the living pretty much the same, like getting groceries, all that stuff, or is it a lot more different?
Where we live, and we call it the road system in Alaska. If you live where there's a road, it's really not that bad if you're not in the middle of nowhere. So we live 9 minutes away from a grocery store, which makes it a lot easier than people who live off the road system, where you have to get there by plane or boat.
Oh, geez.
Life is just totally different in the villages and off the road system.
Yeah.
And on the road system in some places, it's like 500 miles from a grocery store.
Holy shit.
Wow.
It's a wild place.
Dang.
What are the grocery costs and gas costs up there right now?
Our gas is almost $4 a gallon.
Okay, so it's
higher
not
than here.
Yeah, it's not much worse than this.
Yeah, it's not terrible yet. It was, in the 250 range, but it's
what's like a breast of chicken, like a pound of chicken or a pound of beef cost?
That's a great question, but I don't know the answer to it because I've not bought any since we've lived there. So
That's all right.
I don't really know, but like a gallon of milk is like $4. A dozen eggs is in like the $5 range. So it's a little bit, yeah.
That's crazy.
And it adds up for sure.
But you like it, right?
We love it. Yeah, both me and my wife, which is like the best part, likes it too. So that's what keeps me there.
So tell us about the hunting up there.
Yeah.
So I see on your Instagram page, you got some birds up there. What kind of birds are you chasing? Are there pheasants up there? I have no idea. I've never researched hunting in Alaska, other than I know you can go out and shoot a grizzly, or probably can't hunt polar bear, but they're up there obviously.
Well, I went up to Alaska like most people, dreaming of the big game hunting, and I would say my first spring there, I realized really quickly I thought I was just gonna shoot black bears like crazy because they're everywhere, and I realized that wasn't quite gonna be the case. And so I had pretty much given up bird hunting. I grew up bird hunting here, and I sold most of my shotguns and just thought that I wouldn't do it. And it took me about 4 years of big game hunting to figure out that there's actually a lot of birds. So I started out just hunting spruce grouse, which is the main species that we have where I live. And they're not exactly what you would call great targets on the wing. You spend more time trying to get them to actually fly than you do shooting at them. You're like running around the base of a tree trying to get
that's the type of bird.
Chasing a chicken.
That's the type of bird Tyler needs. He can't hit nothing, so he needs one of those ones that stay on the ground.
And then if they do fly, you better work quick because they're just going to land on the branch of the next tree by you. So it's pretty interesting. They're not all like that, but that's pretty much the common thing that happens. So when I was doing some caribou hunts up north, we got into ptarmigan quite a few times and shot them with a bow up there. And I realized that they would offer pretty good wing shots if I ever went for them. And so I kind of found some spots near us that I thought would hold ptarmigan, and I'd seen them hiking before and things like that. And my first time out, I shot like 7 of them. And
what's the limit on those guys?
Shooting. The limit is 10 a day.
Oh, okay.
There's actually 3 species of ptarmigan in Alaska. There's willow ptarmigan, which is Alaska's state bird. There's rock ptarmigan. They're a little bit smaller and slightly higher elevation than willow ptarmigan. And then there's white-tailed ptarmigan, which are really small. They're like probably a little bit bigger than a bobwhite quail, but much smaller than a willow ptarmigan. And they live up even higher.
I was going to say, do they all have different terrain that they're in?
They do, yeah. And it really depends on where you're at. Sometimes they can be, as the crow flies, really close to each other, but like vertical.
Yeah, straight up.
So yeah, straight up. So whitetails really like the rocks with not much tundra there, and where there's some water around. And then rock ptarmigan like it just slightly lower than that. They do feed on some and I'm kind of talking about like the fall season where there's no snow. And then willows, that's how they got their name. They're pretty much in the willows. But when the snow comes, it kind of all overlaps wherever they can find some food, which they eat willow buds and alder catkins and things like that. And so you can pretty much find them anywhere there's food.
Yeah. Did you have when you moved up and started going after the birds, did you work with a mentor, or did you just do research on your own, or how did you kind of learn about all the different birds?
I'm kind of a bird nerd anyways. I didn't have a mentor. I graduated from Iowa State University with a degree in animal ecology, and we had to take bird biology, ornithology while we were there. And so I've always really been interested in birds. And so even though I wasn't hunting them, like I kind of studied them and put in the back pocket where they were if I ever wanted to hunt them again. And there's a guy who lives in Alaska. His name is Jim McCann, and he wrote a book on upland bird hunting in Alaska. And I actually bought the book probably within a month of being there. It was at a used bookstore, and I never opened it again until I realized it was on my bookshelf when I was thinking about going. And I read the whole book in like a couple days, and he has a ton of information in that book. And so I got a lot of information just from that book. I mean, there's not really much information out there. You can't just YouTube like you can other things. How do I hunt ptarmigan in Alaska? There's just not much out there.
So you don't use a dog for them. You just kind of walk along and you find them.
That's the way I started out doing it. I had a German short hair pup for 13 years when I lived in Iowa, and she died right before I moved to Alaska. And so just because I didn't have a dog out of necessity, I had to go with that one. And so winter hunting is a lot better if you don't have a dog, because there's really no cover for them to be in anyways. And there's more signs. So like I just take binoculars up. The terrain is pretty crazy. So like the one area that I hunt, the trailhead is about 2,000 feet below where I'm actually hunting. And it's probably it's over 1.5 miles that you have to gain that. And so it's basically straight up. And so what you're looking for when you actually get up there is they roost in snow roosts. So they'll be, if the snow is soft, they'll be in a hole in the snow. So you can look for those with your binoculars, and they'll also have tracks around. So I usually spot either the roosts, the holes, or the tracks before I actually spot the ptarmigan themselves, and then make a move on them. And they really rely on their camouflage. So they'll usually wait to even move before you'll be in range, like before they move, which is really nice.
Oh, because they don't think you see them.
So what are you shooting them with? 20, 12?
I actually, my first time out last, would have been a little over a year ago. I took my 20 gauge. I have a 20 gauge over under, and that's the only gun that I didn't sell before moving up there. And after hiking 5 miles back in, gaining several thousand feet, I'm like, I really need a lighter gun. And I always wanted a 28 gauge. And I've been interested in them for a while. I'd never actually shot one. But as soon as I did that one hunt, I'm like, I'm going to go get a 28 gauge. So I went and got a cheap Stevens 5.55 and 28 gauge. It weighs 5.5 pounds. And I love that gun. It's perfect for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
It puts the thump on them. It's not like shooting them with a 410 or anything like that. It's still got a lot of killing power.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to worry about bear and, I don't know, mountain lion and things of that nature when you're walking back in 5 miles into terrain like that?
We always take I have a buddy now. He's got a German short hair. We actually met over Instagram, and
nice.
He had a bird dog. He's new to hunting. He's only been hunting a little over a year. His name's Evan, and he had a friend who was into bird hunting and convinced him to get a bird dog when he lived in Wyoming. And then he got a job and moved back to Alaska. He's born and raised Alaskan. And he was like, well, I guess I better figure out how to hunt birds. So he figured it out on his own. And then we just kind of crossed paths over social media and started hunting together.
That's awesome.
And we always take our Glock 10 millimeters with us wherever we go. And we've never had a run in wild ptarmigan hunting, except for a couple hunts ago. We never saw the bear, but there was bear tracks and scat all the way up the trail. And then on the way back, it was getting kind of dark out, and his dog went berserk, which the dog never barks. And it just started barking like crazy. And all of a sudden, both of us have our guns out of the holsters, and we're like, we knew exactly what it was. But thankfully, she smelled it and got it out of there before we ever saw it.
Oh man, That would be freaky.
We see a lot of brown bears fishing. Both of us fish quite a bit, and they're kind of fat and happy. And so if you don't bother them, they usually don't bother you. But seems like those ones that live away from the streams are a little bit more grumpy.
Yeah, they don't have all that food right there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you got some big grizzlies up there?
Yeah, we have a lot where we are. There's probably still more black bears, but it seems like you see the brown bears more just because they're out in the open by the edge of the river.
Man.
And then in the falls, the black bears go on the berries up above tree line, which is also where the ptarmigan are. And so you do see scattered across the hillsides or mountainsides quite a few black bears.
Yeah, I bet that's just some crazy cool country up there hunting.
It is. It's unbelievable. It's really hard to explain to people, even by taking pictures.
Don't do it justice.
It does not do it justice. And getting into birds, like we were like a couple weekends ago before we got hit with snow, like we were getting into flocks of 100 birds in each flock.
Holy
It was
cow.
just
Wow.
crazy. And most people don't know about that. And when you get a dog out there, they find them, and they probably wouldn't ever find them without a dog, because there's still quite a bit of foliage on the willows, and
They just run around you, or
their main predator is aerial. So like hawks and species of owl up there, they're constantly flying around. And we actually use that to kind of confirm that we're looking in the right area. If there's a hawk flying over, we're like, okay, there's ptarmigan here somewhere. And
nice.
they tried it when they're still changing from, so ptarmigan always have white wings, but in the summer they turn brown and they blend in really well. And then they start turning white in late August, and they'll be totally white by October. And so in that transition stage, they're really vulnerable because they've got patches of white on them. And because of that, they know the hawks can see them when there's no snow on the ground yet, and they just get buried in these willows, and you would be pretty hard pressed to find them without a dog.
I'm looking on your Instagram page right now, Eric, to see if I can find these birds. Got a lot of rough grouse.
Yeah, we actually, most people don't know this. Alaska is kind of a little bit of a hidden gem, and interior Alaska, which would be for the most part north of the Alaska Range, actually has all three species of grouse. So they have spruce grouse, which we have down on the Kenai as well, but they have rough grouse and sharp-tailed grouse up there. All
I was just seeing you got a bunch of sharp-tail here.
Is that why
So
the sharp-tails have that long-ass fur on their feet and legs?
Yeah, they do. And ptarmigan are really neat too. They have fur all the way down to their toenails.
Oh wow!
And they're crazy.
So you said they're white on the wing and then like brown on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I see one here.
And then in the winter, they're just pure white. And so
that's crazy.
That's why it's hard to find them in the winter.
Damn,
without finding their tracks and stuff.
That one picture he has, it kind of reminds me of a pigeon.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. We actually had a pigeon when I was a kid, and that's when I saw my first ptarmigan. That's exactly what I thought of, was a pure white pigeon.
Yeah, dude, that thing, they're freaking cool though. You have when they're turning that brown to white, man.
They're super beautiful.
Pretty color, yeah.
Dude, I looked at your page before, but I've never went super down far like I am right now. You got some amazing pictures.
Thank you.
These are some sweet birds. So let me ask you, do you like hunting Alaska more than you like hunting Iowa roosters, or does it not even compare?
It doesn't even really compare. Alaska is far and away better.
Is it something that you think everybody should do? Come up to Alaska?
Yeah, for sure. My buddy Evan and I always
was that an invite?
I think so. I saw your goose hunting goose hunting pictures on there, and I'm gonna be in Iowa like the whole month of December, and so maybe we'll have to do a little swap.
Let us
Yeah,
know.
if you let us know when you're around. If I got a good field, you're more than welcome to join.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But to go off of that, every time Evan and I go out and we're up in Ptarmigan country, which is just totally wild. It's like the most wild place you could ever be. And you look around and you're like, I can't believe there are people that are never going to experience this. Like, it's a totally different world up there. And he is kind of
I haven't even been there and I'm hooked already.
Yeah. He has a cool thing that he likes to say. He's grew up in Alaska. And so he said the only regret that he has in life is that he'll never be able to experience Alaska for the first time, which is a pretty cool concept if you think about it.
Yeah. Since he grew up. Yeah, that's wild. So I saw you recently in September shot your first sharp-tailed grouse. Is that correct?
Yep.
So tell us about that experience. It looks like you've wanted to shoot that bird for 17 years and you finally got the opportunity. Give us a rundown.
So I got my first bird dog when I was 14. And, back then there was no Onyx. There were some satellite images and things like that. And so I knew that the Nebraska sandhills had sharptails. And to kind of give you some insight on when I was 14, we got cable for the first time. And we had the Outdoor Life Network. And on that Outdoor Life Network was Hunting with Hank. But it was always on when I was at school. So I'd record it. And it's this guy named Des Young and his Llewellyn setters, and he would hunt all over the United States and including Alaska for ptarmigan. And so I bought a Nebraska Atlas, one of those big red ones that nobody has anymore. And I was going to go out there, and of course I couldn't drive. So that was kind of a big obstacle. And so I was trying to convince my dad or my grandpa to go with me. And while I was in school one year, I think it was 2 years later, my grandpa, my dad, and my cousin all took my dog and went out and did this sharptail shoot out there. And so my dog got to go sharptail hunting and prairie chicken hunting, and they harvested all of them without me.
Didn't get to go.
And I have always since then been so bitter about that. And,
I don't blame you on that.
No kidding.
I befriended somebody who lives up in northern Minnesota and did some rough grouse hunting. I always wanted to do that. Did that in college, and they had sharptails on the property, and I whiffed on one, both shots, both barrels. And ever since then, that bird has haunted me. And I've never been really, I wasn't sharptail hunting, but it gave me an opportunity. I was going to shoot it. And so ever since then, that was probably close to 10 years ago now already, that I missed that one. And so when I found out there were sharptails in Alaska, I'm like, someday I got to get up there and do that. And so Evan and I planned to hunt for this fall. And we went up there north of the Alaska range, expecting to only hunt sharptails. And we got a really early snow up there, and there was already, I don't know, probably a foot of snow on the ground where we wanted to hunt.
Shit.
And then, so we found this spot and hunted it, and all their food, which we were told they eat these berries, kinnicknick berries, next to windrows. There's kind of a farming area. You wouldn't expect Alaska to have much farming, but there's hay fields, and the sharptails will use those, and they eat on these berries. Well, all their food is covered up. And so we reached out to Jim McCann, and he was like, all right, you got to look for this other food source. And so we started scouring maps of where we thought would have this dwarf birch, which is what they switched to. And we finally found some, but it was knee deep snow, and drifts were up to our waist. And we ended up shooting on my birthday 2 sharptails. Both of us got our first ones. So it was pretty awesome, but it was a lot of work.
Oh man, I can't
walk
imagine tracking
nice.
through that.
So we got back to the hotel room and
Nice.
we're like, okay, we gotta call an audible here because we drove 400 miles and we can't just trudge through that deep of snow all week long. So,
Well, I just looked at how long it takes us to drive just to Alaska.
Oh God, how long?
Better off flying. 2 days and 8 hours.
Whoa.
I'm guessing that's nonstop.
drive.
So
yeah, that's not with any stops.
Do you
Yeah, it's
fly
quite the
down
trip.
when you come to Iowa?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
You still got
it's
family in
pretty
the area?
reasonable. The cost isn't too bad.
Yeah, that's good.
I think this
Man.
trip is about $500.
oh, that's not too bad.
That's not bad. Shit. So when does hunting season start up there for you guys?
Opener is August 10th.
And are you
Which-
you're not in your dark time now, are you?
No, it's super light still then. June 21st would be the extreme, and it really doesn't get dark. The sun sets for a couple hours. But yeah, I'd say I think the sun's probably still up then till close to 11, something like that.
Jeez.
When
But
does
the
it rise?
birds are really small. Like you have to really be selective if you go on opener. There's a lot of young of the year birds that you can tell as soon as they get up, you don't want to shoot them.
Yeah.
So most people wait till they grow really fast. So usually people wait till the last week of August, and by then it's hard to tell the difference.
What's like the temperature range up there during that time?
It's really nice out for the most part. You're getting into the mountains to hunt them, so there can be some chilly mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were on opener, it was downright terrible weather, just pouring rain. And it was cold because of that, but the air temperature wasn't really that bad. And then I went August 27th was the next time I went. So it'd been a couple weeks. And there was a couple ponds up there that had ice on them.
Oh, geez.
They're
Jeez.
about 3,000 feet in elevation. And I'm like, we better make the most of this because we might not have many of these left. And
Yeah.
those we do try to do long hunts in the fall because you can't really go very far when there's snow on the ground. And so when we go, we do like 15 to 18 mile hunts. So
Nice.
4 or 5 of that is one way hiking. And so if you did 18 miles, 10 of it is just walking there and back, and then 8 miles while you're actually up there.
It's
Jesus.
crazy.
And it's
Dude,
not
man.
flat, it's up and down.
Man. So on your walk out, I mean, you're just walking just basically straight up a mountainside to get to
Yeah.
a plateau.
Both
or
of us
something, or-
have scabbards on our backpacks. So we just put our shotguns in a sock, put them in our scabbards and go. I like to use walking sticks to just kind of give my knees a little bit of a reprieve. Mostly
Yeah.
on the way down is worse on your knees than on the way up.
Man, that's wild. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Nick.
It's just crazy. What time are you heading out in the morning to do this?
Well, like we basically leave the house before you can see, and then we hope to get to the trailhead while it's just getting light out, and then like we're out all day long. So usually it's like 7 to 7, 12-hour days.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But in the winter, it's not, I mean, you can spend as much time as you want up there, but instead of doing 15 to 18 miles, we're doing like 6 to 8 miles. And we're only hiking in like 2 miles off the road, getting a quick hunt in and getting out of there before we freeze.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about hunting ptarmigan, because when I figured out that hunting big game was not like a weekend activity that you could do really, I found that ptarmigan, it was really nice to be successful at finding birds every time you went out, which you can't say about big game hunting because you just don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
so what big game are you hunting up there? What's
We're
your favorite? Have you done moose? Feel
Yeah,
like
I've
that'd
done
be
moose. I've done quite a few caribou hunts. That's probably my favorite big game hunt. It's really nice because for moose, there's a lot of regulations around it. Every unit, every subunit has a different rule. They got to be 50 inches wide or have 4 brow tines. And it just gets kind of a little bit tiring trying to figure that all out. And you don't want to make a mistake, obviously. Or for sheep, they got to be full curl. Well, when you grow up in Iowa, it's not like you look at sheep every day and, oh yeah, that's a full curl ram for sure. So
Yeah.
I like caribou hunting because you can just go, and if it's a bull, you can shoot it. It doesn't matter how big it is. So I've done that quite a few times. Then this year I kind of wanted to stay close to home because where I caribou hunt is about a 20-hour drive from where I live.
Jesus.
And it's all the way up on Prudhoe Bay. And I just didn't really feel like driving that far this year. So I did a fly out hunt to a lake in the Kenai Mountains and shot some bears and ptarmigan up there. That was a pretty good time.
Man. So how many trips you usually, like longer trips you usually take in a season, like your 20-hour drive trips? Or like...
Just one. That's the big problem is you really only get one good hunt in during the hunting season. It's the caribou season's a little bit longer than most. It's like August 1st to September 15th, but up there, you got to get out of there probably before that because it starts getting pretty cold.
Yeah.
Jesus.
When does bird season close up there?
Bird season's super long. Where we're at, it's August 10th to March 31st.
Oh,
What?
wow.
So we're just kind of taking a little break right now until the snow shapes up for good snowshoeing conditions. And as soon as the snow hardens up a little bit, it's game time again.
Man, hunting up there is 100% different than it is here.
It is totally different.
When you're talking snowshoes and 8-mile treks in to hunt a 4-mile patch, like, man, here you literally pull in a field driveway, walk to the next fence row, and then you're done with that field. I mean,
it's totally different.
That is just wild to think about. I mean, that's got to be super fun though. Getting
it
out.
Is.
So during that dark, so the dark time is, you said, like December through whenever.
Yeah, mostly the month of December.
So do you guys do much hunting during that, or is that kind of, I mean, there's 5 hours of daylight?
Not a lot. I think pretty much every year I've lived in Alaska, I don't think I've hunted in December. Part of it is because we come down to Iowa for the holidays.
Oh yeah.
So I'm down here hunting other things.
Some roosters.
What's it like if, say, Tyler and I were to come up there to get a tag or license or whatever the case may be? Is that a pretty lengthy process? Do they do a draw, or how's that?
So for ptarmigan, it's just a small game license and it's cheaper than the other license. I think it's $40 for a non-resident
at all
for the whole year.
Wow.
If you want to add other species to that, like big game, you got to buy a $130 non-resident hunting license. You skip that small game one and it covers small game. And then each species has a big game locking tag. And so say you wanted to shoot a black bear, it'd be a $400 big game locking tag on top of the $130 license.
It's not like,
and then
too bad.
Kind of goes up from there. Caribou's, I think, $625 or $650, and moose is $800. And those are the 3 species that you can hunt without a guide.
Nice.
Yep, I'd probably want a guide though.
Yeah.
I'd get lost out there.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, you
even
got to
imagine.
have an inReach. I don't know. Have you guys ever used an inReach before?
I don't even know
No.
what that is.
It's they're owned by Garmin now. It's a satellite texting device. Instead of having a satellite phone, which you probably heard of before,
Yeah.
we always take our inReaches with us because there's no cell service anywhere you go. And if you get in a pickle, you do have the SOS button but for the most part, it's like telling your wife that you're not dead on the side of the mountain.
Gee,
How
When you
much?
don't come
How
home
much
till
does that thing cost?
I don't actually remember how. I think the simple unit that doesn't have the mapping system is just a couple $100.
Okay.
But they make one now where it's a GPS and the unit all in one, which I don't really need. Like with Onyx these days, you don't really need that. You can just download the offline map on your phone and just go with the standard inReach.
nice.
My
that's
God.
yeah, that's just way different than. I mean, we just look at Onyx to figure out where a plot of land is and then just go.
Yeah, see who owns it and go.
Yeah.
We don't use that there. That's the other thing that I really appreciate about Alaska. I've been there long enough now. It was like, okay, I want to go hunting in Iowa when I'm back. And I almost, for some reason, spaced off like, oh, you got to line up all your ground that you're going to hunt. Like, you don't just get to go like in Alaska. Everything is public land. And
That's
so
nice.
that
That'd
is
be really
so nice. It's so liberating.
Yeah,
Jesus.
that's crazy. So do you enjoy the bird hunting more in the fall time, like the August through October, or after December into the spring?
I'd say that I enjoy it more in the fall. I mean, it's just nice not to be frozen to the core while you're out there.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing about hunting when it's super cold is you really can't stop moving because inevitably you're going to sweat no matter what kind of clothing you're wearing. I mean, I try to never have an ounce of cotton clothing on my whole body, but even then, like if you stop to eat your sandwich, which your sandwich is going to be frozen anyways, you just get really cold really fast and you're like, okay, let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's nice not to have to do that in the fall.
Yeah. I mean, are temperatures like way below zero or?
It's really, I need to like get a thermometer for my backpack or something because like I can look up the weather down the road, 2,000, 3,000 feet below where I'm at and kind of get an idea what temperature it is.
Yeah.
But you almost never know what it is up there, but it could be anywhere in those January, February, March hunts. It could be anywhere from 20 below to 30 degrees. It's
Yeah.
usually frozen though.
What are you doing in the off season to stay in shape to hike these mountains?
I try to keep hiking them, even when there's no snow on them in the off season. All the trails are still open, and that's when most people are using them, is in the off season. And so, try to keep doing.
If I was gonna plan a vacation there, no hunting, just like bring my wife up, what's the best time to come to Alaska?
I really like August because August is when all the fish are in, and if you plan a trip to Alaska, even if you're not that big of a fisherman, you got to at least give it a try.
Yeah. What type of fish?
Rainbow trout? Salmon. That's what it is.
Salmon.
Yeah.
We have some monster rainbow trout.
You got some king salmon up there too?
We do. Yeah, that's kind of a story in and of itself. They're not doing that great. It's kind of the sob story of Alaska. King salmon population's not doing that great. So not really a great target species to come up and fish. But we have one of the biggest sockeye runs in the world on the Kenai River. I think this year we had just over 2 million fish come in July and August just to that river alone. And
or harvested or just fish?
Just went through the sonar.
Jesus.
And then the silvers come in after that. Next year is a pink salmon year. So in mid-August, 600,000 pink salmon come in, and they really take lures and flies pretty aggressively. So I always tell people if they're able to come on an even year, come in mid-August.
What's the even and odd? Why do they only come every other year?
For some reason on the Kenai River, an entire year class of salmon kind of got depleted. The population got depleted. And I think if I I think if I remember right, I read something about there was some sort of volcanic eruption that heated up the water, like in an area where the fish were on their way there, like hundreds of years ago, and it wiped out the whole population,
Oh wow.
killed them all. So they only run on even years.
Oh, that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously you're in Iowa now. Are you planning on going out opening weekend for pheasant, or what's your plan?
Yeah. So
And you're at Shields getting a gun. Are you getting a shotgun, or what are you getting?
Are you in Des Moines or Iowa City?
I'm in Altoona. I'm at
Oh.
Fast.
Hey,
Yeah.
shit! I live right. I'm in Bondurant.
Yeah, just down the road.
We
But,
could have did this live. I could have been sitting right with you.
We should have thought about that.
We should have.
I ordered it from sitting in my living room in Alaska, but I'm getting another 28 gauge. So I just got one of those new TriStar Bristol side-by-sides.
Oh
It
yeah,
weighs 5.25 ounces. I'm pretty pumped about it.
That'll be sweet.
nice.
I might try to shoot a pheasant with it. We'll see.
Yeah. So are you going out
You got
this
some-
weekend, or are you not?
Yeah, you got some ground lined up. Got some spots lined up.
Yeah, so my brother-in-law is originally from Western Iowa, and so we're gonna go. He's got a new pup, a yellow lab, so we're gonna
Nice
go over
choice.
there Saturday,
Good choice.
Sunday, and then Monday, right before I go home, we're gonna hit some local ground where I grew up.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, that'd be a good trip. Come back to Iowa and hopefully get some birds in the bag.
I hope so. I'm pretty excited just to see some.
Yeah. So what is, out of curiosity, what does ptarmigan, do they cook like pheasant, or what's type of meat are they?
The meat is a lot different. Have you guys, any of you ever shot sharp tails out west?
I
We
shot
haven't, but we're planning on to this
Yeah.
year.
Their meat is pretty much just like that. It's really dark. It's not light like a pheasant or a quail. It's
like
red.
a goose.
And yeah, it doesn't taste quite like a goose. It tastes more like pheasant does, but because it's red like that, you kind of have to be a little bit careful how you cook it. So
How do you cook it? What's it good?
my favorite way to do it, just no matter how I'm gonna do it, like if I'm gonna add it to, my wife likes to make ptarmigan fried rice or cheesy ptarmigan and rice. She just substitutes ptarmigan in for chicken recipes. If it's like a one dish thing where everything's in one pan, I'll still take the breasts and I'll cut them up super thin and just put olive oil in a pan and get it really hot and sear both sides so that it doesn't overcook the outsides and then it's raw in the middle, like if you just cook the whole breast.
Yep.
So cutting them into those little strips help, and then we just add it to whatever we're making. But I mean, it's good just to eat that plain too. Put a little salt in there. Yeah.
Huh.
Nice.
So give us, what's your scariest encounter in Alaska? Like what freaked you out? Have you had some, maybe you haven't even had any, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you've been there long enough. So have you had any, like, oh God, I'm not going to make it out of this.
They actually had the first, there's a couple different ones that come to mind. One has to do with an animal and one has to do with chasing ptarmigan when it happened. But the first one was just on the property that I manage is 150 acres. And one of my buddies was going to go running in the morning and he wanted a buddy to come with. So I was like, sure, I'll go with you. And at that time I still carried my Glock everywhere I went. And so I took it running with me that morning. And it is the first time I ever ran the property. And I lived there for 3 months, I think. We turned the corner to go into the woods just down the road from my house. And somehow we missed the bear tracks on the road while we were running in. We found them later. But all of a sudden, there's this like 8-foot brown bear, 40 yards in closing, running right at us. And I had time to get the gun out, and I'm drawn a bead on him, and I'm about to have to shoot him in the head. And at 20 yards, I'm pulling the trigger, and he just looked me square in the eyes, and turned 90 degrees and ran away.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty surreal.
Bet your buddy was glad you had that gun though, just in case.
Yeah, he was.
Holy
Super glad.
moly.
And
That would have been intense.
and then this past winter, I wouldn't say I was getting careless. I was just maybe a little overconfident in what I was doing. We were ptarmigan hunting, my buddy Evan and I, and I had just shot all 3 species of ptarmigan that day, and they're in my backpack. And Evan still needed to get a rock ptarmigan for him to shoot all 3, and they went down kind of low into the alders, and so he followed after without his snowshoes on, and encountered like this huge drifted area of snow, and like went into his armpits of snow. So he's like way below me in elevation with his dog, trying to figure out how to get his snowshoes back on, and he's like swimming in the snow, not able to get his snowshoes back on. Well, I'm still way up where I want to be. If I maintained my elevation all the way around the side of the mountain, I'd be back to the trail, which the trail was packed down by hikers. So that's where I wanted to be. Well, like a week before that, I was able to kind of post hole a little bit through this windswept section of steep mountainside and get right over there. So I just started doing it, thinking it would be exactly the same as the week before, but it was much harder. Like I wasn't getting through, and I had my ice spikes on and my sticks, but there was this thin, fresh layer of snow on top of it that hadn't blown away yet, and it was kind of slick. So I got out on it, and it was almost like I realized it too late that I shouldn't be out there. And all of a sudden, I just lost it, like started sliding down. And I probably slid almost 1,000 feet down the side of this mountain, and nothing happened to me.
Oh my goodness.
So I went home, and my wife's like, I think you should probably get life insurance.
Oh, shit. Holy smokes.
Man.
So I'm gonna be a little bit more careful out there this winter, I think.
How'd your buddy get out of the snow? Did he tell you?
I didn't
Just
see
keep
him.
swimming?
He had pretty much gotten out by the time I had
Slid down.
cleared all the snow off of me so I could see again. And
Man.
he didn't even see it happen. That's how busy he was trying to get out of his predicament.
Wow, man. That's just wild. That's only an Alaskan story. That
Jesus. So if that would have kept going, would you like flew off a cliff or like?
That's the danger, is there's all these rock outcroppings. If I had slipped in the wrong place, it would have been deadly.
Man,
for sure.
that is
Jesus.
That's crazy to think about. How long did it take you to like learn? So do you go back a lot to the same spots that you hunted in the past? Do you try new spots? And I mean, is it hard to learn the lay of the land since it's up in the mountains and snow's changing all the time? And
yeah, it's hard. Some of the things that happen like kind of help you decide where to go again. So like usually if there's birds there, there's going to continue to be birds there for the rest of the season. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be there next season, because they're super nomadic, and they're moving around. Whatever habitat's good, they're going to be there. But at the same time, they might not be there day to day. So like they'll be back, but you might go up there and get into a ton of birds, and then go the next weekend and there's nothing there. They just might be on the other side of the mountain or down the mountain a mile or whatever. So
do predators not really go for these birds? Because I feel like a limit of 10 is an awful lot. So they're obviously plentiful out there.
Yeah, they are. I think that they probably get preyed on more when there's no snow on the ground, because there's more birds around, more migrating through. I think even though some birds of prey stay, a lot of them migrate out of there. So in the winter, they're kind of sitting pretty. But they do get preyed on by hawks still in the winter, just not as heavily.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's
I can't
pretty-
see the darn
pretty
things
great.
as white as they are. They're still on the ground.
Yeah. The other limitation too to hunting in the winter is if there's no way up, like if you're not continually keeping a trail open, or if other people aren't keeping a trail open for you, it may be that you never get to go there the whole winter. Where we usually hunt in the falls, the avalanche danger is too high for you to really go up in there in the winter, even if you
Jeez.
kept a trail open.
You ever seen avalanche when you've been up there?
I've seen them from the road. Yeah.
I bet that's pretty wicked.
And seen sign of them. You can see after the fact when you're driving by, but I've never been in one, and I've never even really been close to one.
I don't think I'd ever want to
Probably
be
a
in
good
one or
thing.
close one either.
Yeah, I don't even want to hunt in a place that really gets them.
Yeah,
Freaks me out.
that would be
Jeez, yeah, that would be
Scary.
terrible.
so.
Get rolled up in a snowdrift and can't move. Jesus.
Exactly.
done.
It sounds awful, doesn't it? You can have
Yeah.
Crushed, suffocated. Ugh, Jesus.
Yeah. It's a serious place. I tell my counselors that come to Alaska to work for me in the summer, like, Alaska will kill you if you're not
Sounds
careful.
like it. That is
Man.
the Wild West.
Sounds like I need to make it out there is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It does
Sure.
sound like a blast. So, man, that would be. Yeah, we'll definitely have to stay in contact. Maybe try to find our way up there sometime. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you're
for
back
sure.
here, you said in December, let us know
Yep.
and we'll set up a day or two if we can and
yeah.
Sounds
go
good.
shoot them up.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, we definitely appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about Alaska.
Super
We learned
interesting.
a ton, so
Yeah.
we definitely appreciate that. But again, thanks for coming on. We'll let you get going so you could go get that new 28 gauge, and
Sounds good.
hopefully you get some roosters while you're in Iowa this
Thanks a
opening
lot. I
weekend.
appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Eric, have a great one. Thanks for joining us, man.
All right,
Have a
talk
good
to you
one.
later.
Later.
Bye.